second tutorial group, 1030 group. This is an analog console, not digital. This is an audio interface with a control surface that is able to control Pro Tools. If you look at the fader on Pro Tools, it's controlled with this fader, and vice versa. If I control Pro Tools with the mouse, then ghost in the machine. So the signal flow is microphone is connected to the patch panel inside the live room that we'll go to in a minute. It is hardwired physically from the control panel to the first 8 inputs of the console. So you can have up to 8 microphones connected. Then from one channel, the first 8, for example channel 1, it physically goes out of the console through a direct out into the audio interface. The first 4 inputs I can adjust the gain level, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So when a microphone's connected from the live room patch panel directly into the first 8, the very first thing you do is check before connecting anything that the master fader is down. That will prevent any unwanted accidents happening. So when you position mics and you change their position, if this master fader is up, and if you have the monitoring level which directly controls the level to the speakers, then you can have a really big loud sound, which may damage the speaker, may damage your ears. So first thing to do, if you're unsure, pull down the group faders as well. So red and blue faded down. These are your 2 microphone inputs that we're using today, so you can bring these up to 0 on the fader. Remember, this is analog. Then, according to how loud your sound source is, you monitor the VU meter. Yeah. Well, it's not really a VU, this is a VU meter over here, but you monitor the input level. It's analog, so you can go into plus, whereas you know that with Pro Tools, the input level, you never go beyond 0 decibels, because that will end up in a distorted sound. Analog consoles are different. You are aiming for an average level that is fluctuating around 0 and having peak levels going to around plus 12. You can drive it even harder to plus 15. So analog distortion sounds very different to digital. It's more forgiving. Some musicians actually like the sound of analog distortion, for example on electric guitar. But anyway, so the first step before you come in, red and blue faders all the way down. Put the first 2 faders, if you are using a stereo mic technique. If you're just using one microphone, then raise that fader to 0. You adjust the gain level, which is this purple dial, until you have an appropriate level, fluctuating, oscillating, well, not oscillating, but fluctuating around 0. If you don't have any signal coming in, check the cable, but first make sure the phantom power switch, 48 volts, you can see it there. Make sure that's on. You saw the light spike. What I mentioned about pulling the master faders down, if I didn't do that, that would send a very loud signal through the speakers, which you can see how strong it is. That can damage the speakers. Yeah. So if you're unsure, you know, what best practice, or including myself, just bring those all the way down. Connect your microphones. Ensure phantom power is on. raise this fader up to 0, adjust the gain input. So the gain input will change according to your sound source. So one musician will be louder than another one or softer than another musician. If you have a vocalist close to the microphone, they will be really loud as compared to another instrument that is further away from the microphone. So you have to balance the strength of the input. That's very, very, very important. If you don't do that, if this is not high enough, then the sound source is not very loud. So if it's a soft instrument in terms of loudness, then you'll be trying to increase the level here, and then to get a good level in Pro Tools, you will probably boost the level here. And what you end up doing to achieve an optimal level in Pro Tools, if you don't adjust the gain input properly, is that you will end up recording a lot of noise from this console, a lot of hiss, shh, which is an inherent sound of an analog mixer. So what we're trying to do is balance what is referred to as the signal to noise ratio of this mixer. That's why we need to ensure that the gain input is optimized according to the input level. With the fader at 0, optimize the gain input, have this fluctuating around 0. We then would balance the input into the interface. So with this digital interface, this is the last stage of analog signal, where we are adjusting the input strength, which you can do for the first 4 channels. The other 4 have no adjustment. So if you wish to use like more than 4 microphones, you can record up to 8 microphones. The first 4, which go out directly from the analog mixer into this digital interface, you can adjust the input level of the first 4. The remaining 4 you cannot. I mean, it's not so bad because you can adjust the signal strength coming out of the console from this fader. So this will affect the recording level or the output level going to this device, which is directly connected to Pro Tools. So let me quickly repeat. Master fader down, group faders down, raise the input level fader to 0, adjust the gain input, go across to the audio interface. The first 4 you can adjust the input, the gain input to the audio interface, which is a similar concept to the mixer, analog mixer. Then what you should be then doing is monitoring the input level in Pro Tools and adjusting the input level of the interface so that you don't go beyond 0 dB on the input of Pro Tools. So here I've got an overload of the input from my previous recording. Yeah. So analog mixer, then input, balance the input gain of the audio interface whilst monitoring input level into Pro Tools, and you should end up with a nice overall level like that. We're very close to maximum input level here, but it didn't exceed it.